Something's weird.
Would like to call to order the June 25th meeting of the Clive City Council. Would the clerk please call roll?
Mayor Edwards,
Here.
council members Weaver,
Here.
Judkins,
Here.
Klein,
Here.
Hawker,
Here.
Gasparado.
Hi. Councilmember Desperado, are you able to unmute yourself?
Here.
Thank you.
Very good. Would you please rise and join us in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. We'll move to the agenda. The only change I'm aware of is that we need to pull item number 39 off the consent agenda.
Approval. Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The agenda is approved. Next up, we have our citizens presentation. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda. If you would like to address the council, please come up to the podium and identify yourself. And in the meantime, Pete will check and see if there's anyone online who wishes to address the council.
For those online, you can get our attention here in the council chamber by using the raise hand function on your Zoom screen. At the bottom, you'll see a heart image or under with React. If you click on that, a window will pop up and one of your options will be to raise hand. Your Honor, I do not see hands going up.
Thank you very much, Pete. Just a reminder that we support the Pillars of Character counts, and we expect everyone in the chambers to follow those principles. Next up, we have our consent items with the deletion of item 39.
For approval. Second.
Motion is second on consent. Further discussion, seeing none, would council please vote, and will clerk please post that vote?
I have to voice vote yes.
And that passes by a vote of 5-0. Our first action item is second consideration of ordinance 1178. Chief?
Mayor and council, thank you. We're back for the second reading of the proposed amendment to personal transportation and mobility devices. Title 6, Chapter 7. There was one change that we discussed last week. That was I excluded bikes and low-speed electric bikes out of the one definition. We talked about that at the last council meeting. That has already been put back in. As I was reading through it today, there was one other part of the definition for e-motos and electric motorcycles. Some of that language was struck. Can you pull it up for me a minute?
I have got it up on my screen here for you.
So you can see the language that was struck out. I wanted to be able to include devices that we're seeing now, but other devices that would come up in the future by having that saddle or seat, may or may not have pedals. Those types of things were kind of limiting what we could later describe as an e-moto potentially. So I took that language out, but nothing else in there had changed. It still maintains the motor that produces more than the 750 watts, designed to travel without more than 3 wheels in contact with the ground, and then the 39 mile per hour speed. That kind of differentiates between the motorized bicycles and then the e-motos that typically somebody would think of when you think of an e-moto. It looks something like a motorcycle, but there are other devices out there that we have seen that don't necessarily look like motorcycles, but still have those bigger motors and higher speeds. So I wanted to make sure we weren't losing anything by having that language. So that was a change that just happened today. Within probably 6 hours ago. So I have had some comment from the public. We received an email from Alex. I think most of the council had gotten that as well. So you've seen that. Most of what we continue to hear from the residents are speed concerns. We've had several more reports of kids being hurt, falling down, falling into the street, being injured on these devices. So we continue to hear the safety aspect being voiced by the residents. That's the main concern that we get. But aside from those two changes, the language has not changed. Like I say, we present this to you for the second reading. I would take any questions that you have.
Any questions? Ted?
So what I'd like to do, if I could, is give my committee report now, since it's relevant to this topic. At the MPO policy meeting this past week, was it this week or last week? I can't remember. But last week, I guess, we had, this topic was on the agenda. We had a very spirited discussion about the topic. Alex, our friend, was there and she presented as well. And so the question was, what's the role of the MPO in this? And should the MPO take a leadership role in crafting a model ordinance? Again, very spirited discussion. It was not unanimous at the end, but I would say there was strong consensus that the MPO should stay in its supporting role and not take over the leadership role of this to craft a model ordinance. And, part of my argument against the MPO taking on a leadership role was, first of all, we're going to have to form a committee. It's going to take months to put this together. We don't have that kind of time at this point, in my opinion. And any model ordinance that gets drafted is a recommendation, as we all know, and it will be presented to us, and then each community will simply tweak that to meet their needs, which is exactly what we're doing here, right? With what our chief is doing along with the Waukee chief. And the Waukee chief was at the meeting and was very helpful at that meeting, had very deep knowledge in this topic. And so we're already doing that leadership role. We don't need to step back and allow the MPO to do it and then delay this process any further. It's my opinion that our residents are demanding that we do something about this now. And so this is our job as local leaders. And so we need to move forward with it as it is. Now, I know, and I completely respect Alex's position on this. We just have a bit of a disagreement. I know her major concern, and she'll come up and probably articulate it much better than I will, but is that the emo definition is not what they consider the standard definition. And I've spoken to the chief about this. That standard definition is not the Iowa definition. There's no Iowa code. It's not in Iowa code of what an e-moto is. And speaking to the chief, e-motos right now, that the definition of that is still evolving. It's still changing, right? And so our definition is intentionally more generic than what their definition they would like. Again, that's intentional because it provides a little bit more flexibility to our officers as things change over time. Now, again, in a year, we revisit this, maybe we do change it to a more standard definition. Certainly if the state comes up with something, then we would follow that. But so in my mind, there's no need to delay this because we don't have a good standard definition that everyone can agree to. This is something that, and I'll let the chief speak to it, but that the chief said he's comfortable with, that this is a good working definition that we can use to enforce this. So that's something that I think that we should be able to move forward with. And, a lot was made at MPO about there being variances between the cities and how, nobody's going to be looking up the code as they drive or ride between Clive and Waukee. And in my opinion, that is very much overwrought. Are there some differences and tweaks? Yeah, and again, that would happen even if we had a model ordinance. But the contours of the ordinances should be very, very similar and consistent. I know saw Bob Andaway and Urbandale is planning on doing the same thing. Dean O'Connor and Altoona, they're going to take a look at what we do and then craft theirs. And again, to tweak it to meet their needs. So, in my opinion, we are creating the model ordinance, and this is taking the leadership role that we need to do here in the metro, and Waukee's doing the same thing. And I would encourage us to move this forward. So that's my committee report for tonight as well.
Thank you, Ted. We
Yes.
appreciate that. Questions for Ted? Yes, Susan.
So you've brought up the conversation about the definition.
Mhm.
Can you explain the difference between the more national
I would ask the
definition?
chief to do that. I've read all the definitions and, I don't have them memorized. So yeah,
And then why
'cause
would-
I asked the chief the same thing.
And why would ours be better?
That's right. I
That we'd
asked the
like
chief the same
ours
thing,
to
so.
become the national definition, I guess, is what we're saying.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to get everybody to agree on what the definition is, at least right now. To your point, there is no real standard definition. And when we look at that and what we really have to use language-wise, we look to the Iowa code, and there is nothing in there right now for e-motos or electric motorcycles. So we're all kind of free to kind of create our own definitions. And I'm not saying that hers is a bad definition. I think ours fits for the purpose of what we are trying to do and what we're trying to include. And it gives us the flexibility to make changes later if we do need to do that. But
And what
as-
is the difference, though? Can you be specific about how they differ?
Well, I think, and I'll let Alex speak to what her definition is, but I think if I understand her correctly, she wants to include some other devices under that definition of e-moto that I don't think we need to because they're already defined in other places. Motorized bicycles or mopeds are specifically what is the issue, I believe.
Again, the way I read it was that ours is a little higher level, a little more generic to provide them with a little bit more flexibility. I used an analogy probably inappropriately, but the analogy I used at the MPO was that it's kind of like the legal definition of pornography. Maybe I can't define it completely, but I know it when I see it, right? And that's the way I see this as well. So
And just to clarify, you're just quoting a Supreme Court.
yeah,
opinion.
something like
You're
that.
not-
I'm a legal expert,
you
right?
didn't
So
create that
that's
yourself.
right. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
You can consult with the comm shop. We can help you with
That'd be
these.
great. Yeah, thank you.
So ours is intended to be more inclusive and not as limiting as the national
Yes,
definition.
we intentionally wanted it broad so that if a new device comes in tomorrow and we have a specific idea of what it's supposed to be, and now this new device doesn't meet that specific idea, now what do we do? And how are we going to classify it? How are we going to include it under the ordinance? So by changing the language just this little bit, it makes it intentionally, it gives us that intentionality to where we can do that and now include things that, tomorrow when Amazon starts selling these at a drastically reduced rate, something that's brand new and coming in, we've got some language that's already in place to address it.
Other questions? Is there anyone in the chambers who would like to comment on this? Oh,
The only thing I'd add is I visited with Dylan Melnick yesterday, and he was very comfortable with the resolution, what MPO came up with on the education piece and the fact that we're working with Plex and putting this ordinance together. He also mentioned that, Ankeny has passed an ordinance, and he said one of the things that might be to learn from with how the education process, what Ankeny's doing, and we might be able to coordinate and work with that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Eric. I appreciate you bringing that up. So that was discussed at MPO. Again, the role that they will play is the facilitation of this so that as all the communities develop and pass their own, they're the single repository for that so that communities can go to them and see what the variances are, as well as help with the education piece, as well as help with the lobbying at the State House when we get to that point. So again, much more of a supporting role, which is exactly where, in my opinion, they should be.
And Councilmember Klein, I will add, and Pete can speak to this, there already is kind of an education consortium that includes Ankeny and ourselves. And I think, Pete, you can
West
speak
Des
to the
Moines
other
too, right?
communities that are in that group.
Yeah, it's a big group and everybody's come together quickly and has put together assets that are already being shared on social media. The other team that's working alongside is Polk County Public Health. They shared a big set of social media design pieces that we can also pull from now, emphasizing safety and parents knowing what they're buying for their kids.
Right.
And making sure before a kid gets on something that they understand this is going to go quick, right? These electric devices get up to speed real fast, so they have to be able to control
Or
it.
in certain cases, they have to be licensed and registered
Exactly.
and all of that. Yeah.
Need any input from Dallas County, from their public health or their sheriff's department on this?
Not that I've heard yet. That doesn't mean, though, that they haven't been doing something. This was, though, prioritized by Polk County Public Health.
Okay.
Anything else from council? Alex?
Yeah, so the big reason I wanted to talk
Could you
tonight
identify
is,
yourself?
oh, sorry, you're right. I know you all know me. I don't know if everyone else in the audience knows me. Alex Rice with the Street Collective, and we're a nonprofit that works to make Des Moines Metro an amazing place to walk and bike. And sometime soon, y'all might have that memorized as much as you've heard from me. So on the point of the definitions, I didn't agree with everything I heard about characterizing the different definitions. What's in this ordinance for e-motos is actually more exclusive, and the kind of standard national definition is more inclusive. So to try to make it relatively easy, there are different terms defined in state code, and as been pointed out, e-moto is not one of them. But one term that's defined is motorized bicycle, which sounds like a bicycle, but that definition is actually for mopeds. So that's your moped definition called motorized bicycle. And then there's another definition in state code called motorcycle. So the standard national definition, or the closest thing there is to a national standard, says it's an e-moto if it's electric and either meets the motorized bicycle definition or the motorcycle definition. So this ordinance here, it says only the motorcycles are e-motos, but not the moped speed devices. And from a safety perspective, the real difference between those two categories is that mopeds go up to 39 miles per hour max speed, and motorcycles can go faster. So I think an important part of creating a safe ordinance too is saying, if it goes 39 miles per hour, we're worried about that too from a safety perspective. It's not just the devices going 40 plus. So to the point about there not being a national definition, so I shared with you all by email that there's a group called People for Bikes that this definition I'm pulling for you, that's the definition that they're using. And I know I shared other information with you about licensing and registration requirements and other different things of that nature. That was to show you how much these two different categories, the motorized bicycle and motorcycle categories, they're alike in pretty much every single way, which is why you can easily group them under this e-moto category. The difference is just top speed and then your what type of license you need to operate these devices. So the definition of e-moto that I'm recommending here, this national definition, is actually going to be more inclusive, capture more of these devices that we really want parents to be concerned about and aware about. And the reason that I view this People for Bikes definition as authoritative is because they're the ones that wrote the definitions for class 1, 2, and 3 electric bicycles. And those are the definitions we have in Iowa State Code and that 40 other states have also adopted. So if there's any definition that's really an authoritative definition that's likely, if we ever define a state code to be adopted, it's going to be the one that they use. And I really want to make sure that across the metro, because a huge part of this work is that parent education piece, that we're all saying the same thing when we're saying what an e-moto is. So hopefully that clarifies some of the things that you all were discussing. I was going to make another point on this definition, but is there any question or clarity there that I could provide?
Is that, Chief, is that defined, what the moped or motorcycle bicycle that she's talking about, is that defined anywhere else in here? I don't recall.
Yes, it is.
So it's covered somewhere else.
Right there, number 8, motorized bicycle.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I think another important part is that throughout the ordinance, anytime it says an e-moto can do this or can't do that, it also says the motorized bicycle can or can't do that exact same thing. So classifying them under the same umbrella changes nothing in your ordinance because you're already saying both of those categories of devices cannot do something or can do something.
So what's the objection then? I guess I'm not following.
It's honestly, if you want to have a definition of e-moto, I would just say an e-moto is a motorized bicycle or a motorcycle, or else remove it. But if you're saying it's only a motorcycle, now once we translate this into education purposes, we're going to just confuse people.
But I guess I just respectfully disagree. I mean, to me, reading the definition that the chief has there is more generic and therefore, again, does allow for future developments as opposed to calling them out as motorized bicycles or motorcycles, right?
I'm not sure I'm following.
You want to capture a larger swath
Correct.
of types of vehicles.
Because things could change in 6 months.
Well,
Technology
and
changes.
I think at some points getting missed here because I'm proposing to capture a larger swath of vehicles. I'm not saying anything different from you. I'm just saying that moped speed device also is an e-moto. So I'm saying all the stuff you're already including, keep that in the definition. Make sure you're adding those moped speed devices, the motorized bicycles.
But if we, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but if we already have it defined somewhere else, why do we need to include it in that definition of e-moto?
I'm sorry.
If we already have it defined in number 8 here.
The problem is just saying that an e-moto is essentially what you're saying. It's only an electric motorcycle. And we're saying it is also this other category.
Call the question.
Any further discussion? Anything you wanted to add, Chief?
Yeah, I would just say we're not. I understand what Alex is trying to say. I disagree that we need to put everything under when we're talking about e-motos, we are very clear and intentional that we are talking about a whole bunch of other types of vehicles. I think that's clear in the definition. So those are the most common terms when you talk to somebody. And as my example was, if I tell you that I saw somebody on an e-moto, you probably are going to immediately think of something that looks like an off-road dirt bike.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not always the case. That's what we're trying to capture in that definition. And I think if you try to include them all, the motorized bicycles under that same definition of e-moto, I think it confuses the matter more. And that's why we've separated them out in the manner that we have.
And I'm happy to include all those other devices. And I actually kind of like the fact that you took cedar saddle out of the electric motorcycle definition. I think there's an argument for doing it for your mopeds as well, because I'd hate to see one of these devices that just gets under the wire. It's 39 miles per hour instead of 40, and then we don't have a broader definition for it. I do worry that striking the word motor out of motor vehicle later in the ordinance, when there are places when you say a motor vehicle can't do this, a motor vehicle can't do that, are you going to risk a situation where it's not apparent anymore that this electric motorcycle is covered by that part of the ordinance?
All right.
But it says a vehicle with a motor.
Yeah, the motor is still in there.
Motor's still there.
It's in the next sentence.
Okay, so
Means a vehicle
So-
with a motor that produces more
Right.
than 750 watts.
Thank you, Alex.
yes.
Move that ordinance number 1178, having been considered by the council, be voted on for passage prior to its final adoption.
Second.
Motion and second for second reading. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post the vote?
And to be clear, Your Honor, the second reading ordinance that's in your packet that you're voting on doesn't have this change that you see on the screen, but the chief, would come back with that in the final reading. Since he just made the change today. So that is not what you're voting on tonight. That'll be in the third reading. Pending your vote here.
And that passes by a vote of 5-0. So we'll take up the third consideration at our next meeting. And I don't think anyone here thinks that once that is passed, that it's carved in stone. We'll, right, as we see throughout the metro and we see it evolve, we'll make necessary adjustments. All right, moving on to animal control.
So our 28E with Polk County and our agreement with Furry Friends are due this year. They actually expire at the end of this month. So before you is a resolution to approve the 28E with Polk County to continue our animal control services, and an agreement to continue with Furry Friends as our animal housing partner. We've been doing this for 4 years now. You'll remember when West Pet was here, we were not getting the service that we thought we were paying for, and it was fairly expensive. I think to the tune of about $80,000 a year is where we were. For the last 4 years, this is the partnership that we've had. It's worked very well. Polk County comes out at all hours of the day and they pick up the animals for us. They deliver over to Furry Friends. Furry Friends does a great job of managing them and taking care of them and reuniting them back with their owners. So we are proposing new agreements, 5-year agreements that will continue on in the same manner. And you've had a chance to look at them and you've seen that the costs have gone up. The costs with Furry Friends continue the 5% a year that we've experienced in the past. The costs with Polk County have gone up a little bit to the tune of about 10% a year. It's still a relatively good deal, all things considered, and what we were doing before. So we're recommending to you that you approve these and we can get the agreement signed and we can get them back in place to continue on and take us through 2031.
Questions for the chief?
I just have one quick comment. In addition to the operational costs, and I don't know, Matt, if you remember the exact number, but I remember West Pet was also wanting to do a new facility. And so we were looking at capital costs of, I don't know, what was it, $10 million or something?
It was fairly substantial and, but to the chief's point, I think when the West Pet kind of system fell apart, I think it was kind of under its own weight of the costs that we're experiencing at the time. And then the provider looking at increasing that cost and then potentially looking at a new facility. When that collaboration was no longer, then Furry Friends on their own and their own fundraising made a decision to construct their own shelter that we utilize today. So I think that worked out for the best. And now with what we have for when you look at the costs of the total package here of pickup and sheltering, this is a very efficient service that our residents are getting in terms of this experience versus what we were paying before, which was over double what you see
Right.
in these numbers.
Not to mention the potential capital costs.
Potential, yeah, with the unknowns that
come
was
with it.
also out there, that would have required referendum and a whole lot of additional work to get done.
I'll move to resolution approving 2080 agreement with Polk County Sheriff's Office for animal control.
Second,
Oh, sorry.
Motion is second on item A. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote, and will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0.
Move to resolution approving the Furry Friends Refuge agreement for animal control sheltering services.
second,
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote, and the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0. Next up, we have our CIT program.
I promise this is the last thing I have for
Celebration
tonight.
of everything
so-
Mark Rayberg did.
Yeah, well, save them all up for one shot. So excited to bring this proposal to you tonight. We're looking at a reorganization of our administrative staff, and then we have our opportunity to look at with the crisis intervention team. So very excited to bring this to your attention tonight. Currently, our administrative staff is made up of 3.7 full-time equivalent employees. So we have 3 full-time admin staff and then 2 part-time community service officers. They make up that 0.7%. But that's our administration staff. And you can see they do quite a bit. They do a lot of records requests and just routing of phone calls and reviewing of paperwork. But we're seeing, especially with our CSOs, is a lot of property and evidence, fingerprinting, and FOIA requests. Those are coming in every day. And those 2 help me out quite a bit with that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Jeff Miller, who's our CALIA and iLeap accreditation manager for both of those programs. So they do quite a bit. Mary Ramsey, who many of you know, is retiring on July 10th. That'll be her last day. With that retirement, we have identified a potential to do this reorganization and then maybe do some restructuring within the department itself. But that would drop our administrative staff, the 3 full-timers, down to 2 full-time. And we would bring our CSOs up to half-time each. So that 3.7 would actually drop down to a 3 full-time equivalent. They would have some increased responsibilities, our CSOs would. But I think the workload balance is going to be good with 2 full-time administrative staff, plus the 1 additional that those 2 would make up. Working a split shift between the 2 of them through the week is going to give us the coverage that we need. And I think the workload balance is going to work out really well with this new proposal. So what we started looking at initially was the savings that this change would give us. And if we do this, you can see what our current FY 25-26 cost is for an administrative specialist or the record supervisor, that their technical term is the administrative specialist, 2 administrative assistants and the 2 CSOs, comes in at about $353,800. We're projecting next year that cost to go down with this restructuring to $282,500. So a savings of $71,235. That's what we're looking at savings wise with staff salary and benefits by making this change from the 3.7 down to the 3. At the same time, this was coming into play and we were discussing this. We got word from Iowa Primary Care Association that they wanted to give us an amendment to the contract that we had signed, that you had approved last year. You'll recall that started out at $120,000 with a drawdown this year to 90. This amendment brings our funding level back up to that $120,000 mark. So with that 120 and the staff savings that we had, that makes up quite a bit of the cost of what it actually costs to field the crisis intervention team. And that number's on the left, that 227.6. That's about what the city pays for the crisis intervention police officer, and then a mental health co-responder, which we do not bear the cost of right now. But if we were to do that, that would be the cost that we would be looking at, is that 227. So when you look at that offset by the savings and by the projected revenue, it comes to an obligation to the city of a little over $36,000. That would be an increase that we would have to pay through our budget to fund this team internally. So the proposal is to bring the mental health co-responder on as a city employee from this point on. Just some of what the numbers were from the prior contract, or the contract we're operating under now. If we don't approve this amendment, our funding for FY 26-27 will drop down to the original $90,000, 60 the following year, 30 the following year. This new amendment increases us. It brings us back to the 120, like I said. There are still some drawdowns that are in this new amendment that we would be looking at potentially in the coming years. Don't draw down as far as what the original contract did. And I can't stand here in front of you and tell you 100% that we are going to have the same funding level next year that we have this year. But I strongly feel that we are going to have another amendment coming to us next year to look at our funding again through Iowa Primary Care. So I can't look you in the eyes and tell you 100% that's going to be there, but I have some strong feelings that that's going to be the case again next year. If you look at cost to the city under this new amendment and with the proposal that we are presenting tonight, again, that expense to the city this year, this coming fiscal year, would be that 36,000. With the drawdowns included, it would go up over the next few years. But again, I have a very good suspicion that we are going to be receiving another amendment for next year's contract. So there's a couple different ways to look at it. Gone over the funding that we will get if this amendment is approved, that 120, and then we've looked at the cost savings. But if you look at just the straight cost of bringing on a mental health co-responder position to the city and offset that with the savings that we have by doing this restructure up in admin, the additional cost will actually drop to about $11,600. That would be all in city's obligation for the next fiscal year to bring this program in-house. I've been talking to you for a long time about that. That's always been my goal, is to have it an in-house program. It would give us the control that we really need, that we are lacking right now. And it would give us the opportunity to really expand what they do and work within the rest of the city. So when we look at the return on the investment, again, it gives us the control over that position. Right now, with the partnership we have with Inside Out Wellness, it's been a great partnership. But they have staffing issues of their own. And at the last minute, they will call their employee back and take her away from us to where she's working for them doing something else. And we don't get the benefit of having her with us. So we would really like to have that control under the department. It improves our relationship with our outside partners. Clive Behavioral Health is a great example. That's a place that this crisis intervention team, is going to just about every day and addressing some issue up there. And that partnership that we've had with Iowa Primary Care has really blossomed through the last year. The things that we've been able to do, the data we've been able to provide them, they see what we are doing, what our team is doing. And I think that's reflected in the fact that they came to us. We weren't actively asking them for money. We told them we'd take more if they'd give it to us. But they came to us and brought this proposal to us. And I think that shows what they feel about this program as well. It is going to be a force multiplier for not just for the police department, but for public safety. I know on the fire side, they have some initiatives that they're trying, and I think this team can really help with that. And then it's a resource for all the departments through the city. And we've had other departments, employees from different departments reach out to our CIT team and say, hey, I got a problem. What can you do to help me? And they have done that. So as a resource within the city, we've already seen benefits from that. So at the end of the day, what we're looking at is it is an increase to the FTE, to our table of organization within the department. It's an increase of 0.3% of a person. That would take us to 2 full-time support staff in administration, 2 part-time support staff that would help up front. And then it would give us that 1 full-time equivalent non-sworn police officer position or mental health co-responder position within the CIT team. All for an expense this first year of about $11,600. I think the return on investment is pretty good. So our next steps in the packet tonight, you have a couple different resolutions. One is a resolution to amend the contract from Iowa Primary Care. And I can sign that and submit it electronically once that resolution has been approved. There's also a resolution to approve the mental health co-responder position within the city. It's a new position. It's a new position description that we created. And that would have to be done in order for us to move forward. If you do approve those 2 things, we are prepared to move forward tomorrow with posting the position and starting to work towards hiring somebody to fill that. And we would hope to have that person in place by mid to late July. With that, I would take any questions.
I would add to the chief's comments too. When we look at this contract with IPCA, the current contract that is before you for amendment tonight is related to just the crisis intervention team officer. They also have contracts for the mental health professional side. Now, again, similar to what the chief said, there's no guarantees in that. But one thing that if the council were to approve this, one thing we would pursue with IPCA for the future is if we are bringing on both pieces of the team in-house, then we would also seek assistance for the mental health practitioner portion of that team, which again is separate contracts, but separate. And then there's a funding source. It's not a huge funding source, but it's something. And to the tune of could make up even for the costs that you see on the screen that the chief outlined. Again, no guarantees in that, but this would give us the position to then have that negotiating position, I guess, with IPCA if they're seeing the good results that they want to see from this team and have it all with one organization. That also cleans some things up for them in terms of their contract relationships. So that's a potential for the future, but something that we would be pursuing as we bring this team fully in-house under this proposal.
Thank you, Matt. Other comments?
Move the resolution approving our Primary Care Association amendment.
Second.
Motion second on the first resolution in A. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote, and will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0.
Move the resolution approving mental health co-responder MHC job description.
Second.
Motion second on item B. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote, and will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Now
support.
I'm done.
Matthew, what can you tell us about insurance?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Tonight before you, we have our property, liability, and cyber insurance renewal. I'm happy to report that we are looking at an increase, but it is a modest increase of 5.7%. If you remember back over the years just following COVID, the market kind of freaked out and we saw some really huge jumps in our premiums, but happy to report that over the last 2 years has kind of plateaued and we're seeing things get back under control. In your packet, there's kind of an extensive memo outlining all the trends that we've been seeing. I won't read that memo to you, but I'm happy to answer any questions about it. And I also have Megan with ICAP here, who's available to answer any of your questions as well. But what we're looking for is just approval to renew our property, liability, and cyber insurance.
Any questions for Matthew or Megan? If not,
I'll move approval of the renewal of property and liability insurance.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote, and the clerk please post that vote. And that passes by a vote of 5-0. Next up, we have some amendments on CIWW agreement. Pete, you want to start with that?
Thank you, Your Honor. So over the past 6 months, as CIWW has would sort of continued to grow as an organization, there were some very procedural things that were discovered in the 28E, 28F agreement that pertain to meeting notices being posted and how much time had to be there before they were posted and so forth. That going through the watering ban last year and through some other things, it just proved that the way that they were written at that time were not practical. And they needed some, what I would just call very much just procedural changes so that the order of business for CIWW could move forward in a public way, in a responsible way, of course, but also in a common sense way. So there is a set of proposed changes to the 28E agreement. Per that agreement, all the member agencies do need to approve them before they can be enacted. And so tonight, what you have on your agenda is that set of procedural changes that are being proposed. This came from the CIWW executive team, and they worked very hard and with legal counsel to make sure that they all were dotted I's and crossed T's. So the staff would recommend approval.
Thank you, Pete. Any questions for Pete or for me? Again, it's really kind of a cleanup, again, giving CIWW the ability to pivot when they need to do so.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Motion is second on the resolution. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote, and would the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Pete. Richard, encroachment.
All right. Hopefully tonight is the third time's the charm on this one. We've taken the comments provided by the council at the last time we had this discussion. Let me bring the presentation up here real quick. So I think we've got to a good spot, and we're hoping that we're in lock with what we heard from the council last time. So here we go. So just a quick refresher, what an encroachment is. I won't need to read this, but basically we all know that an encroachment is use of public property for the private use of a house or a business or something like that. But in the way we've been focusing on it is non-right-of-way city-owned property that is being encroached on by an adjacent property owner. So just a quick thing here and what we were trying to identify with this policy. Basically, it's prohibiting the unauthorized use, private use of city-owned non-right-of-way by adjacent property owners. We also wanted to establish a simple, fair, and consistent framework for addressing those existing encroachments. That's kind of where this came from as part of the work that we've been doing with a lot of projects across the community. We've identified a lot of people that were encroaching onto that city-owned property. Also, what we heard last time is we want to make sure we limit the depth of these encroachments. So it's not an unlimited free pass on how far you can encroach into the city-owned property. And then we want to make sure that we protect the public access, environmental resources, and the city from liability. So and we know that on some of these properties where people are encroaching, they probably need to get off entirely because it's due to some conservation restrictions that came with the property acquisition. And we just want to make sure that this land still is able to use for the public's use as part of either a park or the green belt or something like that. So the kind of the way we're looking at how we would approach this is a revocable license. So we've talked through a lot of these points, so this really hasn't changed much from our previous discussion. But basically, if they are a property owner that's encroaching onto the city-owned green belt or other city-owned space, we would work with them to get a license that would allow them to do that under this policy. It'd have it come with a cost and then give us kind of protections from liability and some of those other things. We'll continue to work through that with legal and make sure we get the right notes and we get all the right protections for the city on something like this.
Hey, Richard, before you move on from that, so will this show up on a title opinion when someone's going to buy a home? Will this show up as anything there? No?
No, a license agreement, unless it's recorded, which I wouldn't expect it to be.
Okay.
because it would need official legal description to go identify the licensed area. It would not generally come up on a title opinion.
Thank you.
So what we did based on what we got comments for last time, we broke it into a much simpler process, much simpler kind of categories and definitions here. We moved it into 3 different categories. One, category A, which would be 0 to 5 feet on how far they're encroaching into the city of property. And then category B, which is more than 5 feet and up to 20 feet. So we kind of, based on what I heard last time, we thought 20 feet was probably a pretty good maximum that someone should encroach in the city-owned property. And then a third category of anything beyond 20 feet. So category A, this is up to the 5 feet. What we're proposing to be permitted within that would be your typical landscaping, mowing, planting beds, and decorative features. This is what we see a lot of these areas. Retaining walls, edging, hardscape, and paths. Permanent structures would not be allowed, even though it says that there. They would not be allowed within that 5-foot area there. And then fences or screening, what encloses the area would be allowed there. You'll see a little bit later, we're proposing if you're enclosing city-owned property as part of that, you pay a little bit higher license fee than the typical person would. And then what we also wanted to point out, an encroachment is limited to only mowing would not be subject to an annual license fee. One of the things we have put on all those property corner posts out there, kind of what people can do and not do there. We've said from the very beginning that mowing up to a mower's width is something that is very much acceptable. We understand that people don't maybe necessarily want native grasses and stuff like that flopping into their yards. So we just wanted to point that out. That is something that would be allowed, would not require a license fee. And I think 5 feet is a reasonable more width to assume.
Just to clarify, Richard, you said that permanent structures, that line should not be there?
It should be not allowed. Yep. So that's just a sheds and accessory structures. Yep. So that's a
Just to
typo.
clarify. Thank you.
So with that in mind, Richard,
Mhm.
someone has built, maybe the former owner of the property's built a shed and it encroaches upon city land.
Mhm.
The current owner says, well, I didn't put that up there, so I'm not gonna pay a license. What's our course of action or resolution with that?
That's still to be determined. So what things we'll do, if we're hitting kind of the right note here in terms of the categories and things like that, we'll take this back and put together an implementation strategy on how we handle that, how we can legally do it, and kind of what the process is for that. So to be determined once we get that figured, as long as we're on the right track here. So category B, this would be the areas that are between 5 and 20 feet. Things that'd be allowed here: landscaping, mowing, flower beds, your decorative features, low retaining walls, edging. A lot of the same things would be allowed in category 1. Not allowed at all here would be fences or screening, structures and sheds, accessory buildings, all those things that really go a lot deeper into there, but make it look like it's a private yard. So we're not going to want to allow someone to fence 20 feet into that and enclose it into their private property. We don't want them to probably put a shed out there that looks like it's part of their private yard as well. So try to define that a little bit better.
So to clarify, going from A to B, A excluded the sheds and stuff. B then added fences.
So I would say, yes, I would say the only difference between the A and B would be that you can fence in a little bit under category A. You cannot fence under category B.
Richard, just to clarify though, in the policy document, we do have permanent structures, including sheds and accessory structures, allowed within the 5 feet.
Okay, well, maybe we'll just open it up. How does the council feel
Yeah.
about that?
I just want to make sure though, because
yeah, no, that's fair.
it wasn't a typo on the slide. That's actually how it's worded in the policy.
So that basically what it is, I copied from the policy into the presentation. So it was a
Okay.
typo from my end on that.
Yeah,
So,
and
but
that's
I guess
what I
it'll-
just
thought
wanna make sure
category A
we're clear on that.
was that it did, like if you went 2 feet over
yeah.
with a shed, we weren't necessarily going to automatically
Mhm.
force you to move it, which I'm okay with.
Because there still would be a licensing fee in that
That's right,
scenario.
exactly. So they still have to make a decision whether you really want that or not.
Wouldn't you have needed a variance to put it that close to the property line anyway?
That's a good question.
Most likely, but here's the deal: is some people didn't actually get any permits at all for some of these things. So they put the kind
So
of
if they followed
This
the
Board of
rules.
Adjustments.
if they would
over
have
there.
followed the rules, they probably would have put it in the right spot.
I just have to ask, are there any examples where there's a swimming pool involved? Because of all the special things that come into play with fencing and everything else?
Mm.
I do
Could
not
it?
believe there's a swimming pool that is across the line or near that. I'd be maybe open that up to Doug to know if he knows if
Yeah, we don't know.
there's
of
any potential, but I doubt it.
We know of neighboring communities who have dealt with that though.
Exactly.
The pool itself, but what about the decking and the fencing?
Right.
Yeah, generally through the permitting process through community development, I'm going to have to assume in most cases that they followed all the rules and been kind of marked out on the lines so that they're in pretty good shape. I know since I've been here, there's been multiple pools where we've actually had to work with the property owners to make sure that where it ended up did not go past the property line. So I know that there's a process in place that has really helped.
I'd just like to make sure we
Mhm.
don't open a loophole somehow
Yeah,
here to create problems with that particular
yeah.
element.
And certainly, as we go through this, when we come up with an implementation strategy, if we run into an issue like that, then that's something we may just have to figure out how we handle that. If there was something like you referenced there.
Richard, what if they've got a chicken coop, just 5, just right off their property?
Well, we'll probably call community development first to see if that's allowed.
See how many permutations we can
Keep
come up with
going,
there.
keep going.
So am I generally hearing from council though, there is some flexibility desired of actually how we worded the policy draft of permanent structures within that 5-foot zone?
So
And-
like it's outlined.
Yeah, when I read through the presentation in advance of the meeting, that's the way I read it, and I was okay with it.
Okay,
So we'll leave it this way.
we'll leave it this
I
way.
think we have to be flexible and look at a case by case situation,
The history on it.
I think so.
Yep.
So encroachments beyond 20 feet, we're recommending that no encroachments, whether or not they exist today past 20 feet or not, be allowed. And looking at some sort of compliance schedule that allows them time to shrink their encroachment or get rid of it from that area there. So what we did here is just kind of put a 12-month timeline on there from when it's identified through the implementation strategy that they would have to get it back within the 20 feet if they wanted to keep within that schedule there. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to give some examples here in just a second on how that might impact some of these property owners and be curious to see how they react to that, wanting to happen to move some of that back. But some of them are pretty extensive. So proposed license fee, it's $1,000 for category A if it would be 0 to 5 feet with a shed or a fence enclosing that city-owned land or permanent structure. It'd be $400 if it was non-enclosed, and then under category B, due to just the amount of space extra, it would be $1,000. Before I get the question, these are really just a shot in the dark, trying to get a feel for, is there something painful enough that people may want to get rid of the encroachments altogether, or are people willing to do that? Certainly open in council's discussion on that, or we'll work with legal to make sure that that's something that's legally justifiable on the fee that we set there. Or recommended.
$1,000 a year is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
I'm just out of curiosity, how'd you come up with that number? Just kind of pluck it out of the air?
Yeah, pluck it out of the air. We're trying to think of something that maybe people would be willing to do that if they want to keep their encroachment that badly enough, or maybe it's a little painful enough that people will get the encroachment off the city-owned property.
Okay.
The problem you run into if they've got a shed on there or something within 2 feet over, do you want to spend $1,000 a year to keep a shed there? Yeah,
And
that's where we're going to get some pushback in those situations.
Yeah, it's really kind of finding what is that line of maybe disincentivizing or at least maybe incentivizing
removals.
Removals, a change in behavior, or if you really like it, if you're willing to pay for it. Because I think
It's up to them.
kind of we go back to category A, the $400 mark, just thinking about the staff time involved just to process and get thinking about our staff time costs just to get the licensing going, that you're getting close to that $400 mark. And so then it's really, okay, what's the multiplier to, get something to a level where people would actually have to think about it and not just easily pay it.
Right.
But that's a policy question for you all, because that was our thought process in this. And so is that in line with what the count as, and I think it would be helpful for you as he goes through the examples. Because again, you have some properties, some developments that all of them together contiguously have encroachments. Again, these are small, they're pocketed examples across the community. There's not a lot of them, but you might have 20 property owners that are all exceeding over 20 feet, or some to certain degrees that would, if they wanted to keep it, would all be paying this individually, each parcel. So, but he's got an example to show you what we're talking about here in a minute. So,
What happens if they don't pay?
So probably what we do is work to have a removal strategy that would be outlined and articulated to them that after a certain point, the city would have the right to come in and do those removals and restore the land.
And then do an assessment, I would assume, right?
Yeah, and that's
For
one
the
thing we'll have to
cost
work
of
out
it.
with legal on that. Yeah.
yeah, there's still some process we would have to work on there.
Yeah.
So, oh, this isn't good.
You need to go in presentation mode, is that what it is?
It's saying that the pictures cannot be displayed for some reason. That kind of ruins the whole. Was it in the packet with the pictures?
Yeah, the packet had pictures, I saw.
Here, I can maybe bring it up.
Yeah,
on
that'd be
my-
perfect. So
Hold on a
sorry,
second.
I don't know why they're not
that didn't
displaying.
convert. There, hang on. Let me plug in here.
Casey's. Back up.
So I'll get to the right slide.
Mhm.
There we go.
Mhm, mhm.
There, I should be plugged in.
Mhm.
There we go.
All right, perfect. So what I've done through is I think it's 4 or 5 scenarios here. What I wanted to try to do is kind of articulate the impacts of a policy and how it would kind of hit real world people out here in the community. So scenario 1, this is one we've talked about in the past. This is the one that Pete and I have talked to a lot of the neighbors out here, and this is the one Matt was referencing. You have about 20 townhomes here in a row, and every single one of them is encroaching in some way. So what I try to do there, you see their property owner line there, as well as the yellow line, which is 20 feet past their property boundary. Almost all these people would be required to do a 20-foot encroachment license if they wanted to keep a lot of that. But also you can see beyond that, there is a lot of either landscaping, turf that goes past that they would be required to remove and scale back, even if they wanted to keep the 20 foot. So there would be impacts here. I know Pete and I have seen it up close. It's very beautiful landscaping out there, but certainly it goes, some of it goes 50, almost to 75 feet deep into the city-owned greenbelt there. Scenario 2, this is over on Woodcrest Drive here. This is less intense than what we saw over on the Cedar Crest Drive. Multiple encroachments well past 20 feet there. You can kind of see the yellow line again. There's a lot of mowing that probably goes another 15 to 20 feet beyond that. Most of this is mainly just mowing. There's not a lot of landscaping. There might be a little bit of mulch rings around trees with some landscaping stone, but this is predominantly mostly mowing. Under this scenario here, they would have to get a license to continue to keep mowing that far, and that'd be $1,000. Okay. This is over, and this is this is a Waukee resident that lives on Badger Lane that backs up to the city-owned green belt. You can see the yellow line for encroachment there, but one thing I want to note on this is you can kind of see there roughly on there, they've actually skipped that point on their fence or their property line where it goes kind of straight across and pivots. They said, we're just going to fence between the 2 outside property points. And so they've fenced in a big chunk of that property that would go well past the 5 feet there. Additionally, you can kind of see it almost in the middle of their property. There is a paved path that goes directly down to the creek there. So that goes all the way down to the creek, and they actually have installed some stones that cross the creek there. So they're well into it, probably almost 150 feet of encroachment that they have put onto city-owned property there. In the case of this, they would have to remove that fence because it is past 5 feet. But if they wanted to keep the rest of it up to the 20-foot line, they'd have to do a $1,000 license, and everything beyond that 20-foot line, they'd have to remove. Okay. This is over here on Northwest 172nd Court. This is kind of off the Berkshire back into Little Walnut Creek area here. This is a property owner that has installed a fire pit in a landscaping area past the property line, but not more than 20 feet. So they could keep that fire pit there. They just have to pay the $1,000 license, but nothing beyond that. So they would not have to remove anything if they chose to do the 20-foot license. And it's a little bit interesting. We've had some actual conversations with that property. You know, they're mad because they thought we cut down trees on their property as part of the Little Walnut Creek project. Come to find out, they actually had installed a fire pit on our property. So a little bit interesting conversation to have there. So this is another scenario up on Valley View Drive, multiple mowing encroachments. The property lines don't necessarily match up 100% with aerial, so it's a little bit off in this example. But most of them are mowing up to about 5 feet from past their property line into the city-owned green belt. So under this example, there would be no license fee, and they wouldn't have to do anything for that. They wouldn't even get a license. So next steps, based on what other additional feedback we hear from the council tonight, we'll edit the policy. We'll begin to work on an implementation framework based on staff workloads, what we think we can dedicate to an effort like this. We know that it's something like this is probably going to be very labor intensive to kind of go through all this. So what can work within kind of our frameworks? We'll bring this forward to the Parks, Recreation, and Public Art Board for their review and considerations for this before we bring it back to you for a formal adoption process. Probably looking at sometime this fall, give us a little bit of time to kind of dig through an implementation framework and additional edits. But if we're hitting the right mark, that's kind of what we'll plan to do moving forward. I'd be happy to take questions. Yeah.
You spent a lot of time on this, Richard, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness of this. I think we do need to get input from the community on this. There's people that have spent substantial amounts of money in developing this, and I think it'd be do our due diligence to get community feedback on this. I know what it's going to be, but we still have to do that.
Absolutely.
Susan.
I'm curious, as sometimes happens with the DOT or other entities, are there examples where we might not need some of that right away, where we'd be open to selling the portion of the property to the adjacent landowner?
I think part of it just depends on what you determine as need. So, I mean, almost all these properties back up to the Greenbelt. The Greenbelt was acquired for the purposes of natural resource protection, floodplain management, green space for the community. So I think you'd have to get into what you define as need for that. Certainly, most of them, could you carve out chunks of it and sell it off? Absolutely. There's probably, some that you couldn't do that at all, but it's really defining that need. And, because someone took some of that property, then we're just going to turn around and sell it to them. So I think you get into some of the kind of dialogue there that jumps in a little bit bigger, that what's to stop this in the future? If someone went out and started mowing 100 feet or caught wind of this, started mowing 100 feet into the green belt and say, hey, go ahead and sell this to me now because you sold it to someone else. So I think that gets probably into a little bit of more of a sticky situation on that.
I thought there just might end up being some examples where we could see.
Yeah, I would say there's
benefit.
very few locations that are probably an impediment, a physical impediment that would stop the city from doing it, unless there's like a conservation easement that doesn't allow us to sell that off. Now, is that probably the best public policy? That's up to you guys to decide if that's how you want to approach that with encroachments. I don't think we would recommend that that's the best practice.
I think I would like to at least keep it as an option for ourselves to consider.
Well, then I don't think that's a bad idea to keep in your back pocket. It's not something we want to pull out all the time, but who knows? Maybe there's those distinct and special situations where we might have to look at that. I think we always rest with the fact of establishing that precedent that Richard came up with. But on the other hand, I think you need to keep that as an option. So I think that's part of that
It
flexibility.
just seemed to me, if it looked like we were trying to benefit from a long-term lease by taking that monthly payment, if there was an example where we really don't need it, I think we should at least keep the option available for consideration.
Wouldn't you have to publicize the sale and then your neighbor could buy your property?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would have to be done through a public hearing.
Other cities have taken certain approaches where they have adapted a policy that would allow any adjoining property owner priority. And so they would be the first one to receive an offer, but it would still be subject to that public hearing requirement.
I think you're on the right track.
Okay.
It's a very thoughtful approach, and I appreciate all the work you put into it.
Right. Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll make a comment. You know where I stand on encroachments, but I do think this was a really good next draft. I think it was very clear and laid it out really well. My one concern, and Ted started to touch on this, Transfer of ownership. We've talked about you see a property and you see things in the encroachment and go, oh, I really like that. I want to do that. How do we stay ahead of those? That I'm buying something that I'm not going to be able to keep.
The way, at least the intent of this is, even if you sell the property, the next person could get a license for that encroachment. I don't think our intent, at least, and if it's written that way, then we need to work to make that a little bit more clear, is that the next person could get a license for that, up to them, depending on that. But yeah, I mean, or we could do it in the point where once that person moves, then that encroachment's got to go away. But I think that would be a little bit more difficult. Just then, are you saddling a new property owner with a removal cost?
That's why I was hoping it would be in the title opinion, because then it would be shown, right? And yeah, but I understand what council's saying.
This one, the one drawback is,
Yeah.
you wouldn't, the new owner wouldn't necessarily know that they're walking into a situation where a license is being actively used for the
Correct.
portion of that property.
Unless the current homeowner
Disclosed it.
discloses that information, so,
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be something that we could force the disclosure.
right.
Mhm.
Anything else for?
Your Honor, I'm not sure if Councilmember Gasparado is in a place where she can unmute herself. She did just text me, though. Councilmember, would you like to share the content of your text?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we've got you.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I agree that I think staff is on the right track. I appreciate the time and thoughtful approach of this. Thank you, Richard.
Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on to our ribbon cutting.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time on that. We'll go make some edits. We'll come up with a public communication plan there and figure out how we want to work to engage the community on that and get some feedback on that. All right. Hopefully, Clive Festival won. I think it does. All right. I think this should be good to go. Well, very excited to say that we are nearing the conclusion of construction out of Greenbelt Landing, and we're quickly gearing up to get ready to celebrate through ribbon cutting, as well as have the Clive Festival out here this year. So I thought I would just give everyone a quick kind of high level of what we're thinking out there with the schedule, and then make sure you have the details for the ribbon cutting. So one of the really cool technologies that working with DCI we've been able to get with the construction out here is actually up-to-date aerials that they use for drones. So this is actually an aerial shot from their drone that was done on June 15th. So really recently, you can see here, the bones of the entire project are now in place. All the physical infrastructure is in place. Really, the last things we're going to be doing over the next week or so is getting the landscaping nailed down and getting that finalized. So you can really see it here now with all the playground, the wetland, the boardwalk, the event lawn, the food truck grove, and all the landscaping areas. It's really coming together quite nicely out there, and we're getting very excited to share that with the community here on July 17th. So just a quick high level of what we're kind of thinking in terms of Clive Festival layout. Obviously, you can see the event lawn where we're going to have the music. We have the food truck grove. Looking at doing the food trucks in the same place we've done it in the past, just west of those orange picnic tables there. Because we have a little bit less kind of flat open space now. In the past, we did like the bounce houses where the playground is now. We're going to use a few more of the parking spaces there for kind of a kid zone. We're going to have bounce houses. The Army's going to bring out their rock wall, allow people to climb on that. We're also going to do some shady areas kind of north of that zone there along the parking lot, as well as the free speech zone. The area kind of down at the bottom, just above between the event lawn and the pump house, we're going to do the beer truck or the beer tent, the Lions tent, and all the vendors are kind of be in that area there, kind of triangulated between the Creekside Pavilion, the Aquatic Center, and the event lawn. So just south there, we're going to have all that activity zone there as well. We're going to block off probably the entrance kind of on that dark yellow line there on the left-hand side. Starting Friday morning, we're going to block that off so people can only enter the parking lot. That way they'll help kind of free up some of the circulation issues and give us a little bit more space for the event. But really looking forward to having everyone out there and dedicating this space and inviting the community to use it for the first time. Got a lot of great
Could you
things.
Go back to that real
Yeah.
quick and touch on where the art piece is going to be going.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the art piece will be just above the stage where the trail comes off the creek there, where the bridge comes off the creek, right where it meets that loop around there. just to the right of that. So it's that little dirt area there. And for some reason, I'm not getting my marker to show up, but just to the left of that and above the lawn there, that little dirt patch there. It'll be right there. It's gonna be really
Below
cool.
the yellow square.
Yeah, just below that yellow square, that's where the goats will go. The artist was in town last week. He got all the foundations poured for that. So he's going to be coming back here on July 6th with the sculpture itself. Be shipped from Ottawa, Canada. So it'll take about a 16-hour semi ride here. And then he's going to get it put together and installed those last 2 weeks. And I'm very excited that it's going to be ready to go and be kind of the icing on the cake for this. So looking forward to it. It'll be really cool because the way he's kind of designed it, it'll actually hang over the trail itself. So when you're coming from the main trail over the bridge, you'll actually see the sculpture as you come into the site. So I think it's going to be a real kind of showstopper coming into the Greenbelt Landing site. So kind of a Friday schedule here. We'll actually start it Friday morning with water tails in the Clive Public Library doing some stuff. Obviously, a lot of the same things we do in the past, but a full day of activities that really kicks off on Friday afternoon with a ribbon cutting event and work its way all the way through Saturday with a full day, including the Lions Pancake Breakfast, like we're there, the running festival. We're having a great touch a truck event. We're going to be bringing in some really cool vehicles for kids to check out that we haven't had in the past. Right now, we have the giant water slide penciled in here, but the way things are looking, it's likely not going to happen just with the irrigation ban. So, maybe we'll try it again next year. But I know the community really enjoys that event, and as soon as we can do it, we'll do it. But and then just a ton of activities with music and vendors, and then finally we'll wrap it up the weekend with fireworks like we do every year, the Thunder over Clive fireworks. And then just the ribbon cutting. So looking forward to having everyone out there. 4:15 p.m. on the Mid-American Energy stage. The mayor and a few others will give some remarks about the project. And we've got some fun facts on the amount of concrete and that we poured out there, the number of plants we planted, how much water the wetland will hold. It's got some fun facts for that the mayor will be able to wow everyone with. Following that, we'll have a ribbon cutting and some photos there with everyone that has been involved in that. And then we'll head over to the Creekside Pavilion for some drinks and light snacks. And then we'll kick off the music a little early because of that. At 5 o'clock, the first band will start. So looking forward to having everyone out there and very excited to celebrate this kind of big achievement in this fantastic public space. With that, be happy to take questions.
Susan.
I am expecting a lot of interest in the event this year. And I wonder what provisions we're making for parking, especially handicapped accessible parking. And do we need to offer a shuttle?
Yep. So, yeah, we can handle all that. So, like I said, a few less parking spots here. We're making sure that as many of the ADA spots are available on site. But we've also actually worked out with the local and national pork board. We can park there. We also have the gravel lot up above the aquatic center. We also have the city grass lot just on the south side of campus. We've also worked with Mercy. We can park in their lots. We just got to make sure we don't block the driveways for patients and things like that. We can also park in Walnut Ridge on Saturday, and we'll be offering a golf cart shuttle from all those parking areas down to the main event. So hopefully we got pretty much everything covered. I know the golf cart shuttles, we've used those the past couple of years and been very popular to get people down from the hill there. So I think we've got most of our bases covered. And I should say the City Hall parking lot is available as well, almost except for Saturday morning.
Richard, did we make provisions for bicycle parking?
Yep. So one of the things that we built into Greenbelt Landing was plenty of bike parking for not just the pool, but the site itself. I think we have room for almost 80 bicycles that people could park in the new bike racks. So they'll be located at multiple locations, the north side of the event lawn, the south side of the event lawn, in front of the Creekside Pavilion, and then in front of the aquatic center. So we have a lot of bike parking across the entire site, really trying to accommodate it as much as possible, being right on the trail. Yep.
Have we reached out to Beggars Trash yet to get our message on Clive Festival signs on that message at right in front of their on University?
We will take care of that.
Because I went by there, just said cityofclive.com. What a perfect opportunity to advertise our message on the dates of Clive Festival.
Yep, we'll make sure that gets on there.
One thing that I'll add too is earlier in the week of before Clive Festival, we're working on kind of some smaller ribbon cutting events for specific pieces on Greenbelt Landing. I know I mentioned this briefly, I think the last meeting. And so the art piece, Councilmember Klein's question on the art piece and the icon water access. There was kind of a commingled funding between both Bravo and Icon for all of that area. And so that is one we see as kind of a natural link where we're going to have a separate, ribbon cutting event. We haven't locked down what time earlier that week that we'll do that. Another piece is depending on the variety and the donation family for the playground wants to do a separate event for the Ashley Oakland playground. We haven't confirmed any of those details yet. If not with any of these, they're going to get rolled into the main ribbon cutting anyway. And then the other one that we're looking at is the wetland component with the Secretary Neg in terms of the investments that IDOLS and other state entities through grants have made for the wetland and the water quality components. That's definitely another one that we want to almost use those as highlights, as teasers into the big event, which will be the Clive Festival component. So we're trying to see what we can do to kind of have a schedule that rolls into the bigger event. We'll share all those details with you as we're able to confirm and lock down some dates and times of those other, those additional kind of one-off ribbon cutting events for certain components.
We've already had touches with interested media partners on those too.
Very good.
Thank you.
Anything else for Richard? Thank you, Richard. We appreciate it. Matthew, do we have any correspondence?
No, sir.
Well, we'll go to reports. Pete.
Thank you, Your Honor. So next week is the week, not the only week, but really the biggest week when we get out there to talk about fireworks and fireworks safety. The state has significantly over the years limited our ability to sort of control where that type of activity can happen, but we do still have some control, including in our parks. So we'll be working closely with the fire department this coming week to share the news about what the rules are in Clive. As a reminder, our old rules, the limited if it flew or exploded, we could prohibit it. Those are not the rules for Clive anymore per changes that were made at the state level. So you all hear much from your constituents on this, and I'm sure that this is going to be similar this time around. Our hope is that even with these changes, though, that everybody does it in a safe and respectful way.
And we're already hearing fireworks going off, but could you remind us when it's actually legal in Clive?
It is legal, and thank you for this is testing me. I know it's legal on the 4th. I believe it's legal on the 3rd as well, the night of the 3rd, within certain times of day. And Chief, I believe that latest time was it 10? Was the max, the latest you could go.
Thank you, Pete.
Lawn watering ban update. So the headline, just as it was last year, is way to go, Clive. Good job doing what you needed to do to protect the water supply. We saw when the ban went in place, there were a few days when people needed to sort of, figure it out. How do I turn it off? Oh, I didn't realize maybe I had a leak, so on and so forth. But overwhelmingly, people have complied. When I say comply, that takes us from a peak of, for just irrigation, of about 1 million gallons, maybe a little bit more a day, down to something sub 200,000 gallons used for going through irrigation meters. And that number that's sub 200,000 is oftentimes going to be things that are allowable. So new sod, watering gardens, watering flowers, and so forth. We like to see it go even lower. Last year at our low mark, we were keeping it consistently in that 120, 130,000 gallons. As of earlier this week, we'd seen some creeping back up to 200,000. So we wanted to make sure we were really getting on the enforcement. We run our reports daily on where we're seeing for irrigation usage. We had a particularly important report that we used on Tuesday then to reach out to about 78 different property owners. Some had been on the list earlier, but most were new because either we hadn't been in touch with them or we saw some new use. Of those 78 or so, we determined that well over half of them were using water for an allowable purpose. There were about 25 that we still hadn't heard back from one way or the other. And then when we ran the report again today, we saw that there were 8 others that we have questions on that we want to contact. So for the folks, though, that have not responded to us by phone or by email, we will be sending out tags starting tomorrow morning. We did have one tag that went out earlier this week. It's actually a success story. It was for a property over in the Woodlands. The people had not been watering, they didn't think. But in fact, when they energized their system at the beginning of the spring, it looks like there was some sort of a damage done so that they were leaking dozens of gallons every day, adding up to some significant loss for them. And so because we tagged them and we reached out to them, they were able to figure this out and identify that, they had a problem they needed to fix. So they've taken that action. I think tomorrow, based on the list I've looked at, we're going to have somewhere between 5 and 10 more to tag. So these are still very, very small numbers relative to all of the folks who could be irrigating. Big challenge ahead of us. People have done the right thing. A little easier to do the right thing when the weather's so good and everything looks so good. We're going into a real hot week next week. And so the ask for all of our residents is going to be, thank you, thank you, thank you for doing what's right. Stick with us because it's really important that we protect the water supply. If we can keep going on this, we're going to get to the other side and then things are going to go right. We're going to keep being better each year we go into some of these situations until we get it resolved. But this year where we got to stay focused is keep the water supply safe and obey with the rules.
Anything else, Pete?
I wish I had go Team USA. I'll end on a positive, right?
Well, I'll do my best to get us out by 9.
Okay.
Sadie, what do you have for us?
No report tonight, Your Honor.
Is it good where you are?
It is gorgeous. We're on the beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Oh, very nice.
Good. We don't have the same view here.
Next week, we're heading to Outer Banks in North Carolina.
There we go.
Oh, enjoy.
Very nice.
Ted,
My report was the MPO report. That's all I have.
thank you. Eric,
Yeah, Catch Des Moines board meeting, we voted on the budget, it's pretty much a status quo budget. They've done a good job of pivoting from the 20 to 25% on the hotel motel tax. And in addition to, this is Trina's first year, so the transition from Greg to Trina's gone very well. Good news is the Junior Olympics is coming in 30 days, which is a very large event, probably 40,000 visitors to Des Moines. So very exciting. And they're also looking at potentially in 28, some additional round of the NCAAs as they massage that. I know Matt and I visited with Trinity today, and so we're in the running for that. So
Nice.
yeah, good stuff.
Susan.
I previously reported that Bravo was considering not doing the gala. And there has been a decision made to go ahead with it for next year, but continuing to evaluate whether that will continue into the future or in some different format. February 6th is the date that's been booked. And then there's a small group from the Housing Solutions Alliance traveling to Austin, Texas tomorrow to look at the site that is the model for what JAPA is proposing in the Des Moines area for a tiny homes project for those who are housing challenged. And I am participating in that trip.
Very good. Back to Bravo. Do you know how Bravo, the event, did last year?
It was successful, but not
Wildly?
right. It continues to be a situation where there's a lot of effort that goes into generating resources to come close to breaking even. And they've been intentional about trying to refocus it to really focus on the partners from the arts and culture community. And that part has been successful. They did start something new in this past year to have a breakfast. This past year it was at the zoo to really look at honoring those partners. And they plan to build on that, offering some recognition awards, that kind of thing this year. So stay tuned for that evolving as well.
Okay, thanks, Susan.
Monday this week, I had a tour of the WRA, which was much more extensive than I anticipated. That was 2.5 hours of walking and seeing and other things. But it was a really great tour. And as a new board member, it helps to be able to see some of those things in action. And Patrick Bean is the executive director, said if any other groups want to come and see it, he is happy to schedule those tours. Craig was the tour guide and he was great. That's all I have.
Did it take you 15 minutes to get through security?
No,
Oh, see, she had better luck than us, Doug.
they did say there was a holdup with the city of Clive. Yes,
Did
Early.
they?
Yeah.
City biosolids.
plenty. It's great.
Anything legal, Lisa?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Matt?
Just a couple items. Earlier this week, we had an employee appreciation lunch here at City Hall Library to kind of celebrate the completion of this project and allow staff the opportunity that aren't in this building on a regular basis to see kind of all of the spaces. We're hopeful tonight, later tonight after everybody leaves, that we'll have the paint stripers back to they'll sweep, and then hopefully we'll finally have the striping on the parking lot. The parking lot is now complete, so good to complete this project. Also wanted to mention, just in terms of we talked about Greenbelt Landing earlier, just the amount of kind of quality of life improvements, and then getting back some of our quality of life amenities that will be happening over the next 2 months. So with Greenbelt Landing in the middle and Clive Festival in the middle of July, we're hopeful now by the end of July to have the Greenbelt Trail reopened underneath the Interstate Bridge. I know we all wanted sooner than that, but a combination of the Hickman interchange and the WRA sewer, that's what we're shooting for. And then right on the heels of that, Lanand Park in early August. So just really thinking about it as we head into this fully into the summer, some really nice quality of life amenities. Again, new ones, redeveloped ones in the case of Lanand Park, and then getting reconnected with our full trail system is all things that our residents and our visitors have to look forward to this summer. And we're pretty proud of that, to be able to deliver those things. So, and then keep nudging the other two entities to get our trail reopened. So we're or pushing at this point. I don't think we're nudging anymore. So we're pushing. So pretty excited about that. But that's all I have, Your Honor, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Matt? Let me just mention that last week, the Secretary of Transportation was here visiting the DART new maintenance facility. And so I was there with Representative Nunn for that event and other people, just to be clear. And then this coming Monday, DART will have a workshop on the expansion of that maintenance facility. So I think it's probably on your calendar.
Yeah, I'll be there for that. Yep.
Okay. So that'll be Monday. So stay tuned. I mean, it was a great tour. It's a great facility on Vandalia Road, and gives them much better opportunity to service people.
Out of the floodplain?
Yes. Yeah.
Just making sure.
There are no water features there. Anything else for the good of the order or questions? Otherwise, we'll stand adjourned at 7:27.